What is going on, everybody, and welcome to this Saturday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. Trade deadline came and passed yesterday. Some big people moving, some big people not moving. It seemed like the Mikko Rantanen trade took so long with cap implications that Carolina couldn't get anything else done. So it kind of held up, Raquel, Besser, that kind of stuff. So they didn't move, which is hilarious for Vancouver. Toronto gave up 2 first-round picks for Scott Laughton and Brandon Carlo. The Stars gave up 2 first-round picks and a player for Mikko Rantanen. One is not like the other. Leafs, good stuff. They're on this slate as well. Another 6-gamer. 6-gamer last night started well for me, ended horrifically because Cliffy and I were on the same Blues line. I was like, you know what? I'm going to play that Blues line. In a 7-goal game, Thomas Buchnevich and Jake Neighbors combined for 1 shot on goal, no block shots, no points. So that was fun. And, just give the old text to the accountants like, yeah, I lost my buy-in, so you could take it off the taxes. I know you're not finished with it yet. Tax write-off there, but we got another 6 games. We got some teams with some new players on this slate. So joining me to break it all down in his freshly minted Mikko Rantanen jersey. It's probably not Mikko Rantanen, but Cliffy, what's going on?
Yeah, not a whole lot. Definitely not a Mikko Rantanen jersey. I didn't jump on it that quick. But yeah, it's I only watched the first 2 periods of the Red Wings game yesterday. I went to a late movie last night. So I didn't really see the Red Wings implosion, but my God, that team is truly something else. Do have to shout out Wally Balls. It seems like at least once a week, if not more than once a week, he drops into the chat to let us know that he smashed, and Wally Balls did so again last night. I'll bring that up on the screen. Whoops, that's not it. That's it. Took down Tank first and second place last night, 12,500 in total. His lineup had 3 of the Winnipeg power play guys, Scheifele, Connor Ehlers. He had Mark Stone and Tanner Pearson, a couple punt defensemen that worked out really well, Wyatt Kaiser and Rasmus Sandin. And he got the shutout from Ilya Samsonov. So really good lineup from him, really good night from him. Hopefully we can get some more winners in the chat here tonight on this 6-game slate.
Yeah, and if you go, I don't really want to dox his Twitter handle, but I retweeted his tweet. If you go to my Twitter, he is giving away a free month of Core All Access if it gets to 25 likes. So go like it if you're interested in trying to get a free month of Core All Access. Steve says Cliffy already ordered the Kuzmenko Kings jersey. Yeah, they're out of stock because Cliffy ordered 6,000 of them. He's just going to have a big bonfire when the weather gets nice. It's an expensive bonfire, but this is an interesting slate. We have Toronto, we have Colorado, we have Dallas with Mikko Rantanen, we have Edmonton, and then we have Chalk, Calgary, and Nashville because sure, why not? We'll just throw that wrinkle onto the slate. But let's get into it before we do. Just 120 of you already in here between Twitter and YouTube. Jacob Vrana comeback season. Yeah, I talked about that the other day. The Caps traded a second for Anthony Beauvillier instead of just keeping Vrana and playing him on the third line. But, not everyone could be winners. Now the Preds need to go get, hopefully, the Senators release Marty Ferk. So Quick Party can get his Vrana Ferk, Ryan O'Reilly line. But yeah, if you are interested in going premium for DFS, you can click that Stochastic link. Use promo code Stochastic15. That'll get you 15% off any subscription, your first subscription. MLB packages, I'm sure, are dropping soon. So if you're waiting for that, that is no big deal. And we will get you a better promo code than 15% off if you are interested in MLB. If you are interested in the sports betting side of things, you can click that OddsShopper link. They are giving away a free week of Portfolio EV. So click that link, sign up for the free week. But let's get into this slate, shall we? We shall. Toronto Maple Leafs with a 3 total. Heading into Colorado, the Avs have a 3.5 total. New faces, new places. Brock Nelson centering Valerie Nichushkin, Jonathan Drouin. Brock Nelson, for some reason, 7,500 on this slate, $1,500 cheaper than Austin Matthews. That's fun. Scott Lawton should be in the lineup tonight. Brandon Carlo should be in the lineup tonight. Leafs didn't run any lines. I'm not 100% sure where he slots in. Maybe it's Lawton, McMahon, Domi. That's what we have in top stacks, but like we just don't know.
I mean, I can't imagine. He's not going to the top 6. So,
yeah. Also, Charlie Coyle for Colorado centering Colton and O'Connor. I only mention that is because they are 10,200. And if you're looking to power play stack some other teams, I think, that's a line against the Toronto bottom 6 that could be interesting. But Colorado going McKinnon, Netchus, Lehkonen, Nelson, Nichushkin, Drouin. Toronto going Matthews, Marner, Nyes, Nylander, Tavares, Holmberg. As far as we know, we'll have to wait and see at warm-ups there. It is the first locking game of the slate. Of note as well for Colorado, Valerie Nichushkin up on the top power play unit with Drouin, Netchus, McKinnon, Makar, Nelson, and Lehkonen to the second unit there. So that top line isn't fully correlated. Both the first and the second lines are getting 2 guys on the power play unit here. Now, on the Colorado side, there really isn't too much ownership here. And the Leafs are more expensive. They're coming in with less ownership, but Colorado won McKinnon, Netchus, Lehkonen, 21.5, 25.8% top 2 stack, 10.7% projected ownership. Unless we got an update, I will refresh after I kick it to Cliffy. Otherwise, I will freeze. I like them in a nutshell. Like, they've been unbelievable. Like, their expected goals have gone up in their past few games to 5.4 expected goals per 60, 4.6 actual. The top line for the Leafs, as currently constituted, 2.6 expected goals against. That's below league average. Their goaltending has been really good, but Toronto's penalty kill isn't great. I'm sure Lawton and Carlo will help. I don't know how fast because they have to get acclimated to a new system, and Colorado's power play is ridiculous. Adding Nichushkin over Lehkonen, I know Nichushkin hasn't been great on the power play this season, but generally in seasons past, he is one of the best power play players in the league. So I do like Colorado 1. Now, if you want more power play correlation, you could put in Nichushkin over Lehkonen. That will save you $200, and you get a full 3-man power play stack there. I'm fine with just straight stacking Colorado 1, but I do kind of prefer adding in Nichushkin or Drouin, saving a couple bucks and going to use it elsewhere. Colorado 2 is interesting just from the fact that no one's playing him, under 1% projected. But the problem is Brock Nelson's 7,500, and it's really hard to stack the Avs here without McKinnon and even Netchus, you know what I mean? So it's just like, at that point, you're just going Colorado 1 and adding in one of the power play guys. On the Toronto side, kind of have to wait and see with lines here. Toronto 1, I think, is fine. They're just more expensive than Colorado 1. And that's kind of the issue I'm running into. 1, Colorado's a better line, and they're less expensive. They are coming with more ownership, but I think Toronto 1, from the fact that they're fully correlated, they're going to play pretty heavy minutes. I wonder if they tick down a little bit with Lawton there. I don't know. That's just speculation, but I don't mind Toronto 1 and MME. I prefer the Colorado side. I guess Toronto 2 is interesting just because they're 17,500. They're going to see that Brock Nelson line, and maybe he's not acclimated to their system yet. Nichushkin and Drouin have played a decent amount this season together, mostly with Casey Middlestat or Jack Drury. So, like, Nelson's probably an upgrade there. By probably. Offensively, he's definitely an upgrade. I don't know how it's going to be defensively, but it should be a decent line. But if you want to go to Toronto 2, just off speculation that Nelson could be, not fully ready to go, that's fine. But this is a Colorado power play game for me.
Yeah, I do think there is a case for playing Toronto here tonight. That Toronto top line struggles they might have at times. Since the Four Nations break, they're at 3.7 goals per 60 minutes, 5-on-5. Like, it's not Colorado one. It's still it would still be over the full season, be one of the best marks in the league. And all three guys playing heavy minutes. All three guys also on the top power play unit. Like, that's something else, right? That Toronto top line is fully correlated. None of the Colorado lines are. So, when you consider that they're coming in at 3% ownership, like, this is a fully correlated. I don't just forget, I hate saying forget price, because price is really important, but forget everything else for a second. Just think that this is a 6-game slate where a perfectly correlated Austin Matthews line that has generally been pretty good offensively this season is at 3% ownership. Like, that's something that I always think, we talk about that with McDavid a lot. Like, when McDavid, maybe it's a larger slate or something, but he's at 2 or 3% ownership. It's something that worries us. Austin Matthews is the same thing. Like, as good as Colorado may be, Austin Matthews line is good enough to fill the net on anybody. And that's why, like, I agree in a nutshell. I would rather play Colorado one, just because they have been better. They are slightly cheaper. They are at home, higher top 2 stack. And if they're 15% in a single entry, I really don't care. But by the same token, like, if I was 20 maxing 150, like, I'm probably coming in over the field on Toronto here, just because this is, aside from Colorado, this might be the best line on the slate. You know what I mean? I mean, certainly by top 2 stack, they're the number 3 line, and the only one ahead of them is a team playing the Chicago Blackhawks, right? So, if you have the number 3 line on the slate and they're coming in at 3% ownership on a 6-gamer, I think if you're playing a bunch of lineups, you should consider, 1 out of 20 in a 20 max or something like that. Or, if you're playing a bunch more lineups, like, 2 out of 50, 3 out of 50, like something like that. You know what I mean? I hate just ignoring this line, because 3% ownership on a 6-game slate for this line is kind of ridiculous. Toronto 2, I have no real interest in. They've been a bit better since the Four Nations break. They're still not great by any stretch. Willie Nylander, 17 shots in 7 games since the break. That's really not that good. At 17, that line's coming in at 17,500. At that point, I'd probably just rather go play Colorado too. You know what I mean?
Or even Montreal, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, but I mean, just in this game, between the second lines that are virtually the same price, like, I'd rather play Colorado. So I guess I'm kind of like, in single entry, I think I'm out on the Leafs. Like I said, I'd rather play Colorado than Toronto. But I do think if I'm playing a bunch of lineups, you have to consider Toronto here tonight, because nobody's playing them. But yeah, it is the Colorado side I like best. You mentioned how good that Colorado line has been at 5-on-5. They've been shredding everybody. They're at 4.6 goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5, and that's shooting 10.5%, which is not egregious. Like, there are Washington lines that are 14% this season. You know what I mean? I do agree with you that I would be kind of tempted to take off Lehkonen and put on one of Nichushkin and Drouin. I will say that 90% of Lehkonen's points this season have come at even strength. He's on pace for a 35, if you were to play 82 games, it's something like a 35 goals, 65 point season. And he only has 4 points on the power play. He plays with the empty net. He'll still play a lot of, probably the third most even strength minutes on this team. So I do think there is merit to putting in Lehkonen, but the thing is that Toronto power play, or the Toronto penalty kill, is not turning around. It's not getting better. And they're at 2.7 times shorthanded per game over the last 5 weeks of, I'll say, NHL action. That's, worse than the league average. So Colorado should get their fair share of power play opportunities. I really do love Colorado one. On this slate, they do have the highest top 2 stack percentage. So, I really do think you should give a lot of consideration in playing Colorado. It's just whether you play the even strength line or you sub in one of Nichushkin or Drouin or something like that.
Yeah. I often talk about because I get questions about it in the chat all the time before the dynamic pricing. It's like, oh, can I one off Matthews here? And if he's like 23%, I often say no, because generally if Austin Matthews has a massive game, someone is coming along for the ride. But when he's projected at 3%, he makes for a very, very good one off here tonight.
Yeah.
Montreal Canadiens with a 2.8 total heading into Calgary. The Flames have a 3.1. Calgary going Kadri, Huberdeau, Coronado, Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, Gallagher, Dvorak, Anderson. Calgary, wait, what the heck am I talking about? Calgary going Kadri, Huberdeau, Coronado, Coleman, Backlund, Farabee, Sharangovich, Frost, Pospisil. Montreal going Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, Gallagher, Dvorak, Anderson, Line, Newhook, Beck, Armia, Heineman, Evans. There is, Armia, Heineman, Evans play more than Line, Newhook, Beck, so they're worth mentioning on a small-ish slate. Calgary won, fully correlated, 12.1% projected ownership at 16.4. Also of note in this game, Jakob Dobish, min price, one of the two egregious pricings on the day, not the most egregious, which we'll get to later. I don't particularly like Kadri, Huberdeau, Coronado, but as Cliffy said on, I think it was Thursday, the days just blend together. They're a fully correlated line that play minutes, 16K in a good power play matchup. In a little under 100 minutes this season, 2.7 expected goals for, 1.3 actual. Their shooting percentage is low. They send out at home the Backlund Coleman line against top comp. So this Calgary line is going to see middle six matchups of the Habs. And while, the Gallagher line's not bad, the other two pretty bad. So are they my favorite line? No. But is there merit to playing them tonight? Absolutely. 12.1% is not super bad for a 6-game slate. We've seen Calgary lines in the 20s projected ownership on like 9-game slates. So they're not my favorite, but Cliffy's point from the other day rings true here. They deserve your thought. It's really the only Calgary line that I'm interested in. If you want to one-off Frost because he's on that power play unit, sure. If you want to play back on Coleman, Farabee at 12.8 because you need a filler, that's fine. They just aren't playing well together. So it's really just Calgary one. On the flip side, it's also the Montreal top line that I really like here at 17.1, 8.1% projected ownership, 7.7% top two stack. So just a tiny bit of negative leverage. This is a pretty good matchup at 5-on-5. Backlund and Coleman generally have been good defensively, but with Farabee there, they haven't. I do like Montreal one here, and the Flames penalty kill is really bad. Now, if it is Dustin Wolf in net, that's kind of a bummer. And, maybe that would take me off playing Montreal 1 in single entry. But I'd rather play Montreal 1 than Colorado 2, rather play Montreal 1 than Toronto 2. So if for some reason Calgary goes back to Danny V, this line certainly vaults up the board in single entry for me. I think a line A one-off makes some sense. I know he's only going to play 13, 14 minutes, depending on how many power plays there are, but he was at 6,700 at times this season. He's down to 4,800 in a good power play spot. He's a fine one-off. So it's really both top lines here. If it's Wolf, I'm kind of out on Montreal 1 in single entry, although they might make the list. But it's both top lines that I like here.
Yeah. Before going a whole lot further, Line may not play tonight. He missed practice yesterday. He was sick. We've seen players basically since the Four Nations break, players have missed games plural with whatever illness that they're catching. So
he missed a week and a half with an illness earlier in the year.
Yeah, back early January or whatever it was. So We just got to keep an eye out for him, because if he doesn't play tonight, I honestly don't know. I don't know who would take his power play spot. Like I think it would be Newhook, and they just honestly rearrange the entire setup of the power play, because you're obviously not going to put Newhook in Laine's power play spot. He would just take the role on the team on the top power play unit. But something that we do have to keep an eye out for. I also wonder if they don't run a 3-4-2 defenseman power play.
Yeah, that makes way more sense.
Yeah, I mean,
it makes sense from a personnel standpoint. It doesn't make sense from a power play standpoint.
Yeah, it's not something I'd really want to see, but something to keep an eye out for. Normally I'm not very high on chalk Calgary, but I do think it's worth mentioning. This isn't one of the Calgary chalk spots from like a couple months ago where it's like 1.5% top two stack, 11% ownership. You know what I mean? 9.5% top two stack, 12% ownership. Like, that's pretty fine to me on a 6-game slate. That Calgary top line perfectly correlated. Kadri and Huberdeau and Coronado will play between 18 and 20 minutes, like Coronado at the low end, Huberdeau and Kadri higher. And what you mentioned about avoiding the Montreal top line, I think is fairly important. Like, the Montreal second line, like with Laine there, 2.8 expected goals against next to Owen Beck. That's not good. The Montreal third line, like the Gallagher-Anderson line since the Four Nations break, 2.8 expected goals against. That's not good. Like, their best defensive line might actually be the fourth line. And I don't think Kadri's going to see a ton of them. So, like, it's pretty good middle six matchups for that Calgary top line. They are perfectly correlated. Montreal's starting to take fewer penalties of late. Like, over the last 5 weeks of action, they're only taking 2.6 penalties per game. It's about the middle of the league. Going back to Christmas, they're tied for 7th. So, they're not first or second as they were basically through the first half of the season. But Calgary is drawing a lot of power play opportunities. So at 16,400, I honestly don't mind them. I really don't. So I think Calgary 1 has to be in serious consideration here. Calgary 2, like, in theory, they're kind of interesting. I just don't think Farabee will mix well with Backlund. I think I mentioned it on a show earlier this week, and I posted about it on social media earlier today. Like, over the last 2 years, Joel Farabee creates more off the rush compared to the forecheck than nearly any other forward in the league. And Coleman and Backlund create more on the forecheck than off the rush. Like, they're just diametrically opposed players. I think that's why maybe you're seeing some bad defensive numbers in a small sample. It's because they're not on the same page. So kind of out on Calgary 2. Calgary 3 is moderately interesting because Sharon Govich still gets decent ice time. Morgan Frost is on the top power play unit. Like, they're fairly cheap. Like, I guess they're okay, but I'm going to be honest. Like, if I'm playing Calgary here tonight, I'm just going to the top line, the perfectly correlated top line, and then moving along. On the Montreal side, like, I'm kind of out on Montreal too. Like you said, like, Owen Beck and Patrick Laine get the lowest and second lowest amount of ice time amongst the Montreal forwards. At least at even strength. Like, Laine obviously gets top power play time, but like that line is basically the fourth line. And that makes, like, the Armia line, the Armia Evans Heineman line, and the Dvorak Gallagher Anderson line. And that Heineman Evans Armia line has been pretty good this year. In 240 minutes, 55% expected goals shared, 3.1 goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. If Laine's out, they're probably going to have to get some more ice time here tonight. Like, if I'm playing super expensive Colorado or Toronto or even Edmonton here tonight, I think one of the 2-man stacks I would look for is something like Evans Armia, Evans Heineman, something like that. I think that would be my favorite depth stack on Montreal. But it would be the top line in general that I have the most interest in, especially with Calgary taking a lot of penalties. Calgary's at 3.2 times shorthanded per game over the last 5 weeks. That's the most in the NHL. Going back to Christmas, 4th most power plays given up per game in the league. So, Montreal might get 3, 4, maybe 5 power play opportunities if they're lucky here tonight. So I don't I really don't mind the top line. I think I kind of prefer Montreal 1 to Calgary 1 here. But it's basically neck and neck for me. If you look at the top two stack percentage, Calgary 1's at 9.5%, Montreal's at 7.7%, and they're more expensive. So I think overall Calgary 1 would be the better play, but I do like the fact that the Habs are coming in with single-digit ownership on a 6-game slate.
Yeah. Let's get to a fun one, shall we? And by fun like root canal, not fun like partying with your bros. Chicago Blackhawks with a 2.6 total. Heading into Nashville, the Predators have a 3.8 total, highest on the slate. Hello, darkness. We're back with some bad Preds chalk here. Forsberg, Marcus Sissons, Stamkos, O'Reilly, Evangelista, Svechkov, Cole Smith, Bellows. Not really sure why I mentioned that line, but they are 9,400 and they're coming in with 3% projected ownership. Chicago last night went Donato, Teravainen, Mikheyev, Bedard, Nazar, Doc, other people, Bertuzzi, Foligno, Slaggert. Start on the Chicago side.
Just real quick, should mention that Preds did run morning skate like an hour and a half ago or something, and they had Jakub Vrana on the third line instead of Bellows.
Oh, right. I literally knew that, and I'm like Ron Burgundy. He'll read anything off the. I need to fix that, but yeah, Jakub Vrana, baby. Let's start on the Chicago side. The only real line of interest for me is Donato, Teravainen, Mikheyev. It is Justice and Nguyen in net, not UC Saros. That's worth something. Like, these are two bad teams here. The Donato, Teravainen, Mikheyev line has been decent for a Chicago line, you know what I mean? Bedard had a point yesterday. That was his first point since the Four Nations break.
He had an overtime winner.
Yeah. This game sucks. But yeah, Donato, Teravainen, Mikheyev would be the line I'm interested in. If you want to one off Bedard, fine. Like, I'm not super interested in Chicago here. The Nashville side is very migraine worthy because Forsberg, Marchessault, Sissons is 19,100 coming in at 21% projected ownership. Now they do have a 22.6% top two stack. However, for $1,400 more, you can stack Dallas one with Mikko Rantanen. For $2,400 more, you can stack Colorado one. For $100 more, you can go stack Edmonton one. For $3,000 more, you can go stack Toronto one. That's the issue I'm running into in single entry. That, and it's a line centered by Colton Sissons. Now, Forsberg and Marchessault have been very, very good offensively this season. That line with Sissons and Forsberg actually have good numbers together. And the Blackhawks suck. But, like, you can get Colorado one or a Colorado power play stack for like $2,000 more at less than half the ownership. In theory, as the migraine is settling in, Nashville is a pretty good play here because Chicago's back-to-back on the road. They're terrible. But it's like you see the conundrum in single entry. It's like, why would I play Colton Sissons when I can go play McKinnon, Matthews, Rantanen, McDavid? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man. You want to go play them? That's perfectly fine. Like, this is an unbelievable 5-on-5 matchup. Stamkos, O'Reilly, Evangelista, 18-1, 10% projected ownership. Like, that line actually, like, doesn't make me want to go take, like, 7 Advil because of this headache. It's just, like, O'Reilly and Stamkos have played pretty good this season. I like Luke Evangelista. It's just 18,100 when you have, you know, Calgary one in a decent spot right around the same ownership. Montreal one, $1,000 less expensive, less ownership. We'll talk about a Kings line later that's cheaper. So, it's just really hard to prioritize the Preds here. They're in an unbelievably good spot. Don't get me wrong. It's just the ownership, the teams, and the other lines in their price range that make it hard for me to prioritize them in single entry.
Here's the thing. Like, yes, Nashville is in a really good spot. Is Chicago not also in a really good spot here tonight?
These teams suck. Like, they're the
You know what I
two
mean?
worst in the league.
Okay. On the season, Chicago's giving up 3.45 goals against per game. Nashville's at 3.32. They're nearly identical for goals against per 60 minutes so far this season. If you go back to Christmas, the difference is 0.09 goals against per 60 minutes since Christmas between these two teams. Going back to Christmas, Chicago is scoring more goals per 60 minutes than the Nashville Predators. Okay? On the season, the Chicago Blackhawks are scoring more goals per 60 minutes than the Nashville Predators. Which team is actually worse here? You know what I mean? So, like, okay, I get all the ownership on Nashville. Chicago's a bad team. Nashville also fucking sucks. So, do I want to play a 21% Nashville line that is as bad or / as good as a 2% Chicago line? Like, not really. With all that ownership, like, I guess if you want to play Nashville, like, go ahead. I honestly would rather bank on Arvid Soderblom having a good game here tonight. You know what I mean? I'd rather, like you said, I'd rather go play Edmonton. Honestly, we'll talk about the Islanders later. God forbid, I'd rather go play the Islanders probably. Certainly rather just pay up and go play Colorado. Like, I understand wanting to play Nashville. I do think this is another case where, like, if I do play Nashville, I am not full stacking. I like a 2-man, if you want to do a cheap-ish 2-man of like Sissons, Forsberg, okay. I honestly think even going down to the third line and doing a 2-man of like Vrana, Svechkov or something like that, if you want to play them with like Colorado or Toronto or whatever, I think that's okay too. In general, I want to play the Chicago side here tonight. Again, these two teams have been as bad as each other every step of the way this season. Goals against, goals for, doesn't matter. So why would I run out and play a 20% Nashville guy when a comparable 2% Chicago guy is on the board at a cheaper price? So for me, I am much more in on the Nashville side. You mentioned Donato, Teravainen, and Mikheyev, 15,200, 2.8% ownership. Like, they've been, at least serviceable compared to most Chicago lines. 2.4 expected goals. That's actually about league average. They're riding a white-hot shooting percentage, so I do worry about that crashing down. But the Nashville penalty kill has not been good, or at least the goaltending on the Nashville penalty kill has not been good for like 3 months now. Not that Chicago's power play is going to be very good. We've talked about their struggles without Seth Jones, but a struggling power play's got to score every once in a while. Heck, even the New York Islanders scored 2 power play goals once upon a time. Bedard and Nazar is what sticks out to me. I do worry being a game late on them because they did have decent games yesterday. But Frank Nazar, his zone entry rate is sky high. Connor Bedard's zone entry rate is sky high. And Nashville's defensemen allow zone entries at one of the highest rates in the league. It's one of the reasons why this team sucks defensively. So if you have 2 guys that are great on entries going up against a defensive group that sucks on entries, I kind of like Bedard, Nazar, and Colton Dach here. I would probably take out Dach and put in Teravainen or put in Bertuzzi or something like that just to give more power play exposure. And I don't think Dach really plays a ton of minutes, and I don't think he has much upside. But like Bedard and Nazar certainly do. So For me, it'd be like a Bedard, Nazar, Bertuzzi, Bedard, Nazar, Teravainen, Bedard, Nazar, Donato, like something like that is where my interest actually is in this game. If you want to play, like, it's one of those nights where, like, if Nashville goes ham, Forsberg has 3 goals and an assist and just buries me, it's like, okay. But, like, when I can get comparable performing players at a fraction, like, Forsberg is really the only guy on this team that's stood out in any way. He is the one guy that's different from anybody on Chicago. Everybody else on Chicago is comparable to just about to all the top players remaining in Nashville. So I would rather play Nashville at a fraction of the ownership than Chicago here tonight. Or the other way around, sorry. Chicago at a fraction of the ownership compared to Nashville.
Yeah. And while we're piling on the Preds, did you hear what Barry Trotz said about Tommy Novak yesterday? He said he traded him because he said they traded him because they want to focus on Fedor Svechkov. I'm not sure that Barry Trotz knows that they can have both of them, considering the look at this roster.
Oh, but, yeah. I mean, you definitely do have to trade some centers when you've got Colton Sissons, top line center right now in your lineup. That's great stuff, Barry.
Barry, baby. Barry Trotz hockey. Trading one of your brightest young players for an older, more expensive injured player. Good stuff, Barry. Before we move on, we have a $100 super chat from Wally Balls. Thank you, Wally Balls. You don't have to do that, but you always do. Thanks for all the hard work, fellas, and putting on the best hockey show in the biz. Let's keep going strong. Speak for yourself. We need to find how to get strong. No, I'm just kidding. I've had a decent stretch, but nothing like you. You have been rocking out hard in all sports. That was an amazing night last night. Let's keep it going. I appreciate the super chat.
Did you say he's rock hard?
Rocking.
Oh. Okay, I was like, maybe I'm kind of losing it here. Yeah, thanks, Wally.
Diamonds in an ice storm.
Certainly appreciate the super chat. He's like, you've been absolutely crushing it. Anybody that watches this show knows, seems like at least once a week, if not twice a week, we're mentioning him having a takedown. He's been really great. Just glad we could help in any possible way. Let's hope we can get some other winners in the chat, but thanks a lot for the $100. We certainly appreciate it.
Mr. Boom, I'm just reminding you that you took your Tesla to the car wash yesterday, so just pump the brakes a little bit. Let's go talk about his Kings while he's here. The St. Louis Blues with a 2.4 total heading into Los Angeles. The Kings have a 3.1 total. The Kings traded for Kuzmenko. I would imagine he just slides in with Kopitar and Kempe. The thing is, like, Kuzmenko for his career has been a good finisher. This year, he's having trouble finishing, so it's a pretty funny trade. But he's gonna stick there.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest here. Kuzmenko, his best time came in Vancouver. He's played with Calgary and Philadelphia since. Like, those are basically like it's kind of funny that he went to Los Angeles because those are basically like the 3 teams where shooting percentage goes to die. So, like, I don't know if it's going to get a whole lot better, but it's not like he was in high percentage environments before he got to Los Angeles.
I didn't see if he's going to go onto the top power play unit. I'm only asking because the Blues penalty kill is so bad, but the Kings power play is so bad. So I don't know. But anyway, Kings going Fiala, Byfield, Laferriere, Kempe, Kuzmenko, Kopitar, Fogle, Moore, Deneau. Blues probably running back Kyrou, Holloway, Shen, Thomas Buchnevich, Neighbors, Bolduc, Sundqvist, Joseph. Excuse me. I still think the line that I prefer on the Kings side is Fiala, Byfield, Laferriere. They've just been really, really good. The Blues have been decent defensively this season, but they're back-to-back on the road. Joe Hofer, high danger save percentage is a lot lower than Binnington's. I do like Fiala, Byfield, Laferriere, and they're only 16,700. They're at times this season they're up in. Well, when Kempe was there, they were like 21,000, but they were low 19s this iteration of that line. So you're getting a pretty heavy discount here at 5 point, and they're coming in at 5.4% projected ownership. They're about the same price as that Calgary top line. They're coming in with half the ownership. You can argue who's in a better matchup, and it might be Calgary, but at 5.4% projected ownership, I do really like this Kings line. If you do want to go to Kempe, Kopitar, Kuzmenko, that's fine, but there's 17-6. I'd rather just play or save the $900 and go to Fiala, Byfield, Laferriere. That third line is interesting. I wish they were a little bit cheaper than 15-1. So they're not necessarily a filler, but you can use them in a mid-range build. I don't mind to know more Fogle, but it would be Fiala, Byfield, Laferriere for me. On the Blues side, it's like the Kings have been sliding a little bit defensively. And Holloway, Shen, Kyrou is only 13.5. They are coming in with 9.5% projected ownership. I don't know if I want to play the Blues here tonight. They're back-to-back on the road. They have one of the lowest totals on the slate. In fact, it is the lowest. If anything, it would be that line, but I just, I probably, if I'm going down into that 13.5K range, we'll talk about the Wyatt Johnston line. That's the same price. The Duchesne line is $100 cheaper. That Bedard line is only $500 more. You know what I mean? So I don't particularly love the Blues here. I get wanting to play them since they had a good game last night, but lowest total on the slate against a good defensive team. I prefer the Kings here.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. This is the third time these two teams have played in the last week. St. Louis won the first two games. I think it was 4-2 and then 3-2 in a shootout or 3-2 in overtime, something like that. So St. Louis has won the last two games against the Kings. I honestly don't think Kuzmenko is the solution to the Kempe Kopitar problem, because the problem is like Kopitar's had some pretty bad numbers basically going back to Christmas. It predates Drew Doughty getting there, hasn't gotten better since Drew Doughty returned. Like Kopitar has taken it. Like if he keeps playing like this, they got to cut him back to like 14 minutes a game. Like they just cannot keep playing him 18, 19, sometimes 20 minutes a game. They just can't. Not if he keeps playing the way he is. That's why you're seeing like Alex Laferriere 18.5 minutes, Quentin Byfield 20 minutes, Kevin Fiala 21 minutes, 20 minutes. Like that's why those guys are getting ice times, because Kopitar and Kempe they've had a bunch of different wingers. They've tried Fiala there. They've tried certainly Turcotte was there for a while. They moved Kempe off the line. Like they've tried a bunch of different things and none of it has worked. I can't imagine Andrei Kuzmenko is going to be the key that unlocks that treasure chest. So I'm out on the Kopitar line. I agree with you on the Deneau line. I think they're just kind of too expensive. Like at 15,100, I'll just go play something from Chicago, something from Dallas. That's just kind of the way it is. So for me, but like by process of elimination for the Kings, it is Fiala, Byfield, Laferriere. Like they'll probably be three of the five most highest time on ice Los Angeles forwards here tonight. 135 minutes together, 79 shot attempts, 2.7 expected goals, 4 actual goals per 60 minutes, shooting under 12%. So a little high at 11.8% shooting, but not egregious. Like 10.5% or something would be fine. They'd still be a great 5-on-5 line. Fiala and Laferriere, we're assuming stay on the top power play unit. It is a good power play matchup because the St. Louis power play, like holy hell, most goals against. The St. Louis penalty kill, most goals against per 60 minutes over the last 5 weeks. If you go back to Christmas, most goals against per 60 minutes, and it's not even close. Like they are giving up way more than even like San Jose and Seattle on a per minute basis. So it's a great matchup for the Los Angeles power play. It's just the power play sucks, but at least you get 2 out of the 3 guys on that unit. 17,600, at 16,700. I think I agree with you. I think I would rather play them than Calgary here tonight, but I do think like they're in that mix for me with Montreal. We'll get to San Jose in a second. There might be a San Jose line that's kind of in that range, but I would rather play them than Nashville for sure, and I'd rather play them than Calgary. On the St. Louis side, like just not a ton of interest. Like they have split up the power play units, right? They split them up in St. Louis's last game. last night. They had Buchnevich, Thomas, Kyrou, and I think it was Holloway all on the same power play unit. Maybe it was Shen. So that's, it breaks up the perfect correlation of the Kyrou, Holloway, Shen line. So I guess I would go to Thomas, Buchnevich, and Neighbors. But like you said, we'll get to Dallas in a second. There's some Dallas lines down there. I'd rather play cheap Chicago lines. So I just think there are other spots I'd rather go to than St. Louis. So for me in this game, it's the Byfield, Fiala, Laferriere line.
Yep. Let's get to a very interesting game here. Dallas Stars with a 3.2 total heading into Edmonton. The Oilers have a 3.3, couple new faces in new places. Mikko Rantanen on the top line with Robertson and Hintz. He does take Duchesne's spot on the top power play as well. Jake Wallman making his Edmonton debut tonight. He is min price on DraftKings. You know what? I am out of surprises with them, so it is what it is. Edmonton going McDavid, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins, Draisaitl, Arvidsson, Podkolzin. Dallas going Rantanen, Robertson, Hintz, Johnston, Ben, Dadonov, and Duchesne, Granlund, Marchment. Edmonton going McDavid, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins, Draisaitl. I already said that. Look at me. I'm like reading right off a teleprompter again. I'll start on the Dallas side. Dallas won with Rantanen there, 20,500, coming in right around the same ownership as Toronto won. This is kind of like people are kind of afraid to play him, one, because of their price. They're priced below Colorado and Toronto and who else? Colorado, Toronto, basically more expensive. And then you have less expensive Nashville, less expensive Edmonton. So I don't know. Like, I like Dallas one here tonight just because of the ownership. Robertson and Hintz have played well together this season, mostly with, Stankoven or Dadonov or Bork at times. You know what I mean? Like, Mikko Rantanen is easily the best winger they played with. They're fully correlated against an Edmonton team that their penalty kill is generally good. And I'm sure, Wallman helps shore up that blue line, but like taking a stab at 3.4%, like this line should be really, really good. Should be. And I think that's why the ownership's low, because people want to see if they will be. They should be. Also at the same time, like McDavid's on the other side for $1,300 cheaper, but I don't mind Dallas one here. The Johnson, Ben, Dadonov line is fine. You can do whatever you want with Dadonov, but Johnson's still on the top power play unit. He'll probably play 18, 19 minutes. I'm fine with the two-man of Wyatt Johnston, Jamie Benn. If you do want to go to that Duchesne, Granlund, Marchment line, like Duchesne and Marchment have a long history of playing well together. Now they get Granlund. That line's fully correlated on the second unit. They're only 13,400. I'd much prefer to play Dallas 2 here than the Blues Holloway line. So I think there's 3 playable lines for 3 different situations on the Dallas side. Now, the Edmonton side is pretty interesting here because that top line is 19,200 coming in at 12.6% projected ownership. Now, Mikko Rantanen makes that top line much better offensively. It is not going to help defensively. Now, Miro Heiskanen is still out. They've been pumping Cody Ceci some minutes. I do really like Edmonton here. If you want to leave that line together, 19-2 is $100 more than Nashville one, like we said earlier. I'd much rather play Edmonton one here by a mile, almost 10% less projected ownership. Yes, it's Ottinger and net, but without Granlund, their penalty kill. Granlund. I am a mess right now. Without Heiskanen, their penalty kill has slid a bunch. Edmonton's power play isn't what it was last year, but it's basically the same guys. They can, basically blow up any penalty kill at times. I really like Edmonton one here. If you want to go to Edmonton 2, like they're coming in with more ownership than Edmonton 1. So like, yes, they've been really good. 3.5 expected goals for per 60 minutes, that line. And you can play them. I just think, it's a bit of a situation where you're cutting off your nose to spite your face, because this is a much better power play spot than it appears without Heiskanen. So I do really like Edmonton 1 here.
Yeah. Like I think one thing I would kind of push back on is the Edmonton power play thing. Like Zach Hyman was injured and came back December 5th. Since December 5th, the top power play unit's at 13.4 goals per 60 minutes. That is
gnarly. Yeah.
I'm assuming it's the best in the league over that stretch. I didn't compare against everybody else, but if it's not the best in the league, it'd be amongst the top 2 or 3. The power play has been really good. The problem is they're not getting power play opportunities. Going back to Christmas, Edmonton is 24th in the league in power play opportunities per game. They're tied for 20th over the last 5 weeks. So that's the thing, is like, this is a team that would basically year after year, at least top 10, if not top 5 power play opportunities per game, is just not getting it. Is just not getting the power play chances. So, Dallas typically doesn't take a ton of penalties. They've been a little bit worse of late, but that's been a little bit more of a recent thing than a full season thing. And even getting worse is basically like league average. So I do think, like, without Heiskanen, they're going to be worse defensively at 5-on-5. They're going to be worse on the penalty kill. The penalty kill has gotten worse without Heiskanen in the lineup. But it's a matter of, being able to do enough to pay off the prices. I honestly think I'd rather just go play Colorado instead. So I'm kind of out on Edmonton here. That's why I'm kind of out on Dallas too, but Dallas as well. Sorry. I'd rather just pay up and go play Colorado. Like, I have no doubt that Rantanen, Robertson, and Hintz are going to be a great line. Okay. Here's the thing: is the Dallas top line with Logan Stankoven up there was 4.2 goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. That would, like, over the course of a full season, that would be one of the best marks in the league. We mentioned Colorado earlier. Colorado is hyper elite at 4.5. The Dallas top line with Stankoven there was at 4.2. Like, they were already elite. And so for me, you're basically just taking out an elite 5-on, putting in Rantanen into what was already an elite 5-on-5 line and a power play that had been one of the best in the NHL since Christmas, and then jacking up the price by $3,000. Like that's just kind of my problem here. And we know Dallas spreads out the ice time. Like, that was one of the issues with Rantanen when he went to Carolina, is that, in Colorado, he was playing 22 and a half minutes a game. In Carolina, he was at 19 and a half minutes a game. In Dallas, it's probably going to be less than that. I think Wyatt Johnston leads them at like 19 minutes a game this season. Rantanen's not going to earn more than that. He's going to be like between 18 and 19 minutes. It's a lot to ask. They have to be hyper efficient. Now, with Matthias Ekholm out, I think they can do it. I like Jake Wallman a lot. Jake Wallman's impact is going to be more offensive than defensive. Like with Ekholm out, it leaves a big hole defensively, like basically like Heiskanen does. So I think it's still fine to play Dallas, but I'm going to be honest. I think I'd rather go play the Leafs. If I'm looking for a low-owned, expensive line here tonight, I think I'd rather go play Toronto, just because I'm pretty sure that those top guys are going to play 21 minutes here tonight. The Dallas top guys might only play like 18. Like that really does worry me. So I have no issue with playing Dallas 1 in a nutshell. I just think comparatively, if I want a low-owned, expensive line, I'll go play Toronto. If I don't care about ownership, I'll go play Colorado. That's just kind of the way that I look at it. So I think Duchesne, Granlund, Marchment for me, as you mentioned, perfectly correlated. They have been really good offensively with Granlund there. 2.9 expected goals, 3.1 actual goals per 60 minutes. I'd rather play. This is one of the lines I'd rather play than those St. Louis lines. So Duchesne, Granlund, Marchment for me, they'll get 14, 15 minutes of ice time. That's the line that I want to play from Dallas. So not terribly interested in Edmonton here, though I certainly understand wanting to play the top line. I think the line I like best is just Duchesne, Granlund, Marchment line.
Oh, let's get to this last game. New York Islanders with a 3.4 total heading into San Jose. The Sharks have a 2.6. Islanders going Horvat, Palmieri, Duclair, Lee, Holmstrom, Pajot. Sharks going Celebrini, Will Smith, Klim Kostin, Toffoli, Eklund, Wenberg. They're also, without Wallman, I think, going to a 5-forward power play unit. It's going to be Celebrini, Smith, Toffoli, Eklund, Wenberg. So that Wenberg line is fully correlated. I'll start on that side. Like, that line is 13,700, Wenberg, Eklund, Toffoli. They have played well together this season. Now, I do worry that's going to take a hit without Wallman. I'm not exactly sure who's going to move them the puck. Timothy Liljegren, Vinny Descharnay. Like, I don't know. The Sharks' offensive numbers with and without Wallman are kind of scary. And these Sharks lines are both coming in 13.6% on the Wenberg line, 14.7% on the Celebrini line. I'd rather go play that Duchesne line than either of these lines. If I had to pick a Sharks line, it'd be Wenberg, Eklund, Toffoli, just because they've played well together. Like Celebrini and Smith with Zetterlund were good. I'm not sure they're going to be good with Klim Kostin. So if anything, it would be Wenberg, Eklund, Toffoli, but I would really err on the side of caution because the Sharks' offensive numbers without Wallman really take a nosedive. They also take a nosedive defensively, and that's why I do have interest in the Islanders. It's just like, what are we doing here? Like Horvat, Palmieri, Duclair is fully correlated at 18,200, 5.7% projected ownership. Like from an ownership perspective and the matchup, and they're fully correlated, I kind of like them. It's just like, I don't think I can do it in single entry, especially if I'm spending up for a Colorado, for a Dallas, for a Toronto, for an Edmonton, et cetera. You know what I mean? I think I prefer the Islanders than the Predators. But like, I don't know, man. It's like putting lipstick on a pig. At the end of the day, it's still a pig, and I'd rather just prioritize one of those other expensive lines in good spots. Like this might be the best spot of the night. The Islanders penalty kills or power play sucks. If like the Islanders power play was league average, this would be an unbelievable play at 5.7%. But because their power play sucks, like, I don't know. Like, I'm fine with it, and I'd rather play them in Nashville, but I don't think I can get there in single entry.
Yeah, I think it very much is worth talking about this team with and without Jake Wallman on the ice. It is fairly drastic to see what's happened. Celebrini on the ice with Jake Wallman, expected goals for goes up 35%. Actual goals for triples. That's a lot at 5-on-5. Now, that a lot of that's driven by shooting percentage, but shooting percentages are also driven by good players. And you know, if you're taking Jake Wallman out of the lineup, who, let's be clear here, has been far and away the best San Jose defenseman at both ends of the ice. Like, there is no one anywhere close to him in that organization, both offensively and defensively. You take him out of the lineup, like, who is creating the higher percentage shots? Is it Vinny Desharnais, Mario Ferraro, Marc-Edouard Vlasic? None of the above, which is the likely answer. The offense gets a lot worse. On the power play, the San Jose top power play unit generates 76% more shots with Jake Wallman running it than without him. 76% more shots, okay? The goals against with Jake Wallman off the ice on the power play drops more than half. This is nowhere close to the same team with and without him. In fact, I was looking for comparable numbers for this San Jose Sharks team. Now, mind you, this San Jose Sharks team, as it is already, is dead last in the league by points percentage. Okay? This is already the worst team in the NHL. If you take out Jake Wallman and look at what they do on the ice without Jake Wallman, they're the 2015 Buffalo Sabres, which is one of the worst NHL teams we have seen, basically, you know, basically since the 2005 lockout. I think anything can happen in 6 weeks of hockey, but I mentioned this on Blue Sky. I think we're in for the San Jose Sharks to go on a 6-week stretch here where they put up 2 wins, maybe 3 wins. I'm serious. This is going to be a legendary losing streak to finish the season. I think the San Jose Sharks have about 6 NHL players on the roster currently, and that's it. Maybe 7. I don't know, man. Like Wenberg, Eklund, Toffoli, Smith, Celebrini,
Shakir, come on, Nolan,
Ferraro, Liljegren. So 7. Less than half the roster is comprised of actual NHL players. This team is horrific. I don't want to play the Islanders, but I don't know how you just avoid a team playing what is effectively now the 2015 Buffalo Sabres on a 6-game slate. Even with, I was looking at Bo Horvat's numbers. Here's the thing. Bo Horvat has played 300 minutes at 5-on-5 without any of Matthew Barzal, Anders Lee, or Brock Nelson on his line. In those minutes, 2.8 goals per 60. That's not great. That's like 15% above the league average. But imagine a 15% above league average offensive line against what could possibly be the worst roster we've seen in a decade, what they can do. You know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm kind of getting hung up here. This Sharks team is going to be absolutely dog shit for 6 weeks. And I want to try to get in on the ground floor before people start realizing just how bad this team is going to be without Wallman and even without Zetterlund in the lineup. So I don't really want to play the Islanders. It's just I want to stack against the Sharks. That's where I kind of am. So I think I'm a little bit more interested in Lee, Holmstrom, Pajot, just because they're 15K, 10% ownership. I don't care. That line has been able to dominate in their small sample together, 71 shot attempts per 60 minutes. You get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit. That's something. For as bad as their power play is, the Sharks penalty kill is equally as bad. So I think I would probably rather play Islanders 2 here, but I'm going to be honest. I don't know how I just ignore this team because I think this San Jose roster, like I said, it might be the worst roster we've seen in the last 10 years.
Did you hear Jim, or I don't know his first name, Greer's quote on why they traded Zetterlund?
Yeah, they want Zach Ostapchuk for a future because he got to build down the middle. It's just horseshit.
The second round pick was nice, but their scouts love Zach Ostapchuk or whatever it is. Clown team. Anyway, of course, of all nights they have to play the Islanders, which
that's the thing. It's like I wish it was like one of like 27 other teams going into San Jose tonight because like honestly I would like probably Josh stack them, but it has to be the Islanders.
Like give us our Blue Jackets tonight. Come on.
Like honestly, like literally, like I'm trying to think like anybody but the Islanders. Like honestly, like think of all the bad teams like Pittsburgh. I'd rather have Buffalo, Calgary, Los Angeles can't score, St. Louis. Like I'd rather Nashville, like Chicago, any of those teams except for this Islanders roster. It's just really, really unfortunate timing.
Yeah. It's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Let's talk about defensemen here. Top of the board, we have Cale Makar, Noah Dobson, Evan Bouchard, Mackenzie Weegar, Mike Matheson, Tony DeAngelo, Thomas Harley. Makar's in a great spot. He's down under 8K now. That makes it a little bit easier to get him in. I think Makar's one. I think, Bouchard's in a good spot because it's a good power play spot. Weegar for the same. Still confused why Tony DeAngelo's 5,900. He's been on power play 1 for 13 games this season, has 0 power play points and 6 points in the season. But I like Harley, I like Weegar, Bouchard, Makar. I think Dobson's fine at 6,700. He doesn't get top power play time, but he's been playing around 20 minutes, and the Sharks are atrocious. Yeah. I mean, Matheson could be power play 1 here. We just don't know. But for me, it's Makar 1, Bouchard 2.
Yeah, I do think the Islanders moved Dobson back to the top power play unit. But it's like the top power play unit has Simon Holmstrom on it. So like, it's their top power play unit, but is it a top power play unit? I think those are two different things. Yeah, Cale Makar has the top projection, and it's honestly not even close. He's over 2.5 points higher than the next closest person, and his points per dollar is just fine. So like Makar is the top play on the board. I do think Mackenzie Weegar is okay against Montreal. I do have Noah Dobson rated pretty highly, and that's just because I do think San Jose they're an affront to God at this point. Like it's there. This is one of those cases where I wish the NHL had relegation. You'd just send this team to the AHL. Like it's like they have, like I said, they have maybe 7 NHLers and maybe like 3 players that are top half of the roster players on this entire team. It's just an embarrassment. Middle price range, like Brady Shea, obviously he's in a really good spot. I agree with you. I do like Harley. Like Thomas Harley, I do think like he has been fairly shaky defensively since Heiskanen got hurt. But if you look at Harley's minutes, last 5 games, 28.5, 23.5, 26.5, 26, 27. Like they're playing him quite a bit. So don't mind Harley. Essa Lindell, he's getting a lot of ice time as well. I think Lane Hudson, you got to kind of consider him. Like, I know he doesn't put up a lot of peripherals. It's a pretty good power play spot for the Habs. But Jake Walman's the top play on the board, 2,500. Like, it's just kind of insane. So Jake Walman for cheap, Matt Dumba for cheap, Ethan Del Mastro for some reason is still $2,500, even though I think he played 23 minutes last night. I'd have to go double check that, but Del Mastro got a ton of ice time last night. Joel Hanley's playing like 19 minutes a game for Calgary. So there's a lot of cheap guys there. Like Cam Fowler got moved to the top power play unit. So with Cam Fowler under 4K, I do think you have to consider him. I guess Timothy Liljegren, because technically the San Jose Sharks have to play defensemen for 60 minutes. So he's going to get some of that ice time, but not super stoked on Liljegren. And I'll mention Michael Delgado as well. He's projecting strongly over at Stochastic.
Yeah, let's talk about goalies here. Here's the top range, 8K and above, from most expensive to least expensive. Justice Anuin, 8,500. Darcy Kemper, 8,200. Sorokin, 8,100. Blackwood, 8,000. Now, you may say, oh, yeah, Sorokin's the obvious play with the Sharks without Wallman. The Islanders are the WWE of the NHL. Like, this is a game where it's like the Islanders should win 6-0 and they're going to lose like 4-2. But Sorokin is probably my favorite play in the top range at 8,100. I don't mind Mackenzie Blackwood at 8K if it's him. If Dustin Wolf starts, I don't mind him at 7,900. Honestly, like spending down is a mess. Like Skinner and Ottinger are 7,800 and 8,600. I don't feel comfortable with either of them. Stolar's not really comfortable there. Like, honestly, I don't mind Georgiev, as disgusting as that sound coming out of my mouth. I don't mind Georgiev. Joel Hofer, the Kings, are shooting like 0.7% on the season. Arvid Soderblom at 6,900. Like, beggars can't be choosers if you're spending down. None of these guys are trustworthy, but if you need the salary, you can always take min price Jakub Dobish. Doesn't matter the matchup at min price. If he gets you 9 DK points, you're laughing. So like I think honestly I'd go like Wolf, Blackwood, Sorokin, something like that, or just spend down for Dobish.
Yeah, I mean Dobish 6,500. It feels kind of hard not to lock him in, especially like we always say, Calgary has a lot of trouble generating quality chances. And 6,500, like if he gives up, even if it's like 3 goals on 30 shots, it's not really that bad of a night for 6,500. So like
9.1 DK points.
Yeah, it's obviously you want better, but considering some Joey Decor performances that we've been rostering lately, I wouldn't complain about 9.1 DK points. So obviously you do have to really consider Dobish depending what you want to do with your lineup. Like the top two for point per dollar by Stochastic are Kemper and Sorokin. I think I would rather play Sorokin. I agree with you. I hate relying on the New York Islanders to do anything well. So that's why I have a mental block. I might just go Kemper instead. So I think it would be those two. Dobish at 6,500. I'll also shout out. It is Soderblom starting for Chicago. Yeah, I'll shout out Arvid Soderblom here tonight. Like, let's face it, I know Chicago's bad. Chicago gives up a ton of shots, and Nashville for long stretches this season has really struggled to score. If you get a little bit lucky, maybe you can get one of those like 1 goal against on 40 shots games from Soderblom.
Yeah, and I know I'm cherry picking this stat, but I don't care. Soderblom has a higher save percentage than Jeremy Swayman this year.
Oof, love it.
Cherry picking, but suck it, Bruins. Anyway, we'll be back Monday, I believe. We have like 3 days off the rest of the season.
Right. I'm pretty sure we're back every day next week, but when it's those Wednesday 4-game slates, sometimes they nuke the contest. So we'll be here Monday, Tuesday for sure, and then we'll have to see about Wednesday just because sometimes they do really shrink the contest.
Yeah, I mean, MLB starts in April, so they might be concerned about Wednesday's slate, so they probably cut the GPPs in half. But anyway, who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
I said I didn't want to play the team, and I really don't want to play the team, but just because they are in a pretty good spot, I'm going to go with Jonathan Marsh. So,
oh man, that would be destructive for me tonight if Marchessault gets a hat. But let's see. I don't want to go Colorado because that's just cheating. I'm going to go Alex Laferriere.
And I like it. And before we go, shout out the New York Rangers, 3-1 lead with 10 minutes left in the third period. Blow the 3-1 lead and then lose in overtime. So not only do you lose the game, but it's a 3-point game that screws over my Montreal Canadiens. Just absolutely horrific all around. Speaking of relegation, send the Rangers to the AHL.
You don't need to send the Rangers to the AHL. You should send Peter Lavalette to an outpost in Siberia.
Okay, that's fair.
Anyway, we'll be back on Monday. Siberia is still cold this time of year, so good luck, everybody, tonight, and we'll see you on Monday.
Good luck tonight, everyone.